we are live. Let me just get a confirmation on the screen and yeah. Okay, I believe we are live now and I can see the comments page and yeah. So everyone, welcome to INFS Fitness Career Talks. I am Jyoti Dabas, the founder and CEO of INFS. And today we have with us Paul Hooper. Paul is the founder of Paul's Body Engineering, and he's a bodybuilding coach, a sports nutritionist, a two-time pro natural physique athlete, and also an international writer and speaker. Welcome, Paul. Welcome to INFS.
Thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. So today we will ask Paul about his career in fitness. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the comments. I will ask him your questions. Okay, so let me just begin with the list of questions that I have. So I have a lot of questions for you, Paul. We are very excited to have you here.
No worries. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. So Paul, if I understand right, so your fitness for you happened a little later in life, right? And before then, you were an athlete and working a 9-to-5 job. Is the best way to describe it, is it? And can you please share with us the journey leading up to the setup of Paul's Body Engineering?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't start my career in fitness until I was 36 years old. And prior to that, I worked for 14 years in the construction industry in Australia. So I dabbled in a lot of different industries within construction. So I worked in structural steel, remedial and maintenance work, facilities management, all sorts of different roles within those environments, working my way up higher and higher up the chain. But it wasn't until I sort of got to my last job within the industry about 6 years ago, and I sort of got to the top of the tree, if you will. So I was a manager, I was running a building company where I live now, and I thought I had reached my peak. You know, I had staff under me, I had a car, I had an office. You think, okay, I've made it, this will be me for the next 20 years. But the construction industry in Australia in particular is very volatile, it's very high risk, and it's very stressful. And in the role I was in, I found that firsthand. So over time within that role, I started to dislike my job more and more. And you know, we all want to enjoy our work. We want to wake up with a smile, looking forward to our days because you know we look forward to the job that we do. And I was sort of losing that appeal. So after the discussions with my then girlfriend and now wife, I'd always had an interest in fitness. I used to play rugby union as a youngster. I was a junior golf, a success in junior golf, things like that as well. And personal training had always interested me. So one year, I just made the decision basically on a whim. I sort of just made it without thinking twice and enrolled in a fitness academy over here to get my certificates. I hadn't really planned out much more than that. So it was a 14-week course. I committed to that. I worked at night. I studied at night. I still had to maintain my full-time job. And I got through it, and I guess the rest is history now. So yeah, 6 years later, and here we are.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a wonderful story. We have hellos, highs, and good mornings. Buenos dias, Akshay. So I'm learning a little bit of Spanish, and these guys keep throwing a little bit of Spanish my way once in a while. Hello, guys. Hi. Paul Saransh is saying, good to see you again after Connect 19. I remember
fantastic.
your talk in Goa. So we have people who attended the Connect also.
Excellent.
Yeah, he's saying the voice is a bit low. Maybe you'll have to be a little bit louder. I don't know.
A little bit louder?
Yeah.
I'll see if there's a volume on my end that needs to be. All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's see how that goes.
Yeah, Saransh, let us know if that helps. So Paul, when you started your career after, being at the peak of your sort of corporate stint, and did you, what vision did you have with in fitness, and how did you think about how you want to scale it and what you want to achieve, and financially, as well as what you want, like what was the vision of starting the company?
Well, obviously the name itself is a bit of a play on words because I worked in engineering and obviously construction, so that's where sort of the name came up. And in hindsight, it probably wasn't the smartest decision to use that name because a lot of people confuse it with people that work on cars. So I get that a
Oh,
lot,
okay.
but it's kind of funny at the same time. But in regards to, look, I went into the industry fairly naive, to be completely honest. Like I'd been in gyms for a long, long time. I'd trained them as most people do. I'd had a personal trainer as well, which sort of gave me more motivation to get involved as a career path. But I still went in quite naive in regards to how hard it was going to be from the start to build your client base, to earn a decent living. Because in Australia, the fitness industry, particularly personal training industry, is set up so that you work for yourself. So it's a business within a gym.
Okay.
So it makes it extremely hard to hit the ground running. You don't have an immediate income, which can be quite demotivating over time if you don't see that increase or improve. So for me, it was about exposure and utilising the tools that I had available to me. So I was very fortunate enough to start in quite a big box gym, which is where I used to train anyway. So I knew the owners, I knew quite a lot of the members, and I was familiar with the environment. And I basically made myself available to the 2,500-3,000 members that they had on a regular basis there. So that was quite advantageous to me, and particularly in starting. So rather than where I am now, if I started my career in a studio like I work from now, I have no walk-in traffic, I have no membership base, so it would be incredibly difficult to start from scratch. So that works in favour, and that would be certainly a tip I would give any new trainer entering the industry. So look, I utilised all the tools I had. So social media was a big one. I had posters up in the gym. I was offering free consultations and the first free session as well. I was even doing mailbox drops around the neighbourhood within a couple of kilometres of the gym to potentially people that were already members. I was getting the membership database from the staff there to access in regards to new members, so offering them free sessions because they've just joined up, things like that. So there was a lot of tools available, but you had to keep hustling and you had to keep pushing. You couldn't just expect it was all going to magically happen within a week or 2 weeks or a month, because after a month you start paying what we call rent for space in the gym, so you have to pay your way. So yeah, there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, but as long as you've got a business plan and an overall plan as to how you're going to proceed, what you're going to do each day, have your disciplines each week, you can make it happen.
Okay. So you started out as a personal trainer in a big box gym chain.
Yes.
And then you worked your way through and decided one day that you need to set up your own studio.
Yes. Well, once I sort of established myself, so it took about 18 months to really establish myself and be at capacity in terms of clientele. And then it was then about deciding what I do next. Do I want to stay where I am, or do I want to take the risk and establish myself in my own space where I've got more flexibility and more opportunity to grow in my own environment rather than sort of be in the confines of another business? So at about it was the 3-year mark. So it's 18 months. I still built and built and built. So about the 3-year mark, I made the decision. And prior to that, myself and my wife had been looking for space anyway, just out of interest to see what the overhead would be like, the location, because it's a quite a big, not only a risk but also a cost to set up because you need all your own equipment. So prior to that, so from the 18th month mark to the 3-year mark, I actually set up a studio in my garage at home. So where your car's normally parked in your house, I decided to turn that into a little PT studio. So I'm only talking, maybe 20, 25 square meters. So then I started taking on clients from home. So I was working in the big box gym. I was also doing a small amount at home, and I was adding to my gym equipment list as I was going. So, every month I might buy something new, secondhand primarily. And that sort of just staggered the approach to when I was ready to find the ideal space and move into a proper facility. So it kind of worked out well in the end, and the staggered approach really paid off, rather than going from, a fully commercial gym where all the equipment is available all the time, and then having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to set yourself up in a facility that may not work. I sort of staggered that approach by doing the home studio thing first, having some equipment available so that when I moved, I was ready to go, and I added to that over time as well. And I've been there, it'll be 2 years this July in the new one. So yeah, it's been a good move.
Excellent. So we always hear, entrepreneurs are risk takers, and the more I share stories with entrepreneurs, it's always, you plan ahead so much. So everyone does, right? You know the risks, but you plan for them, and that's sort of what you have done in setting up your business.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, it is a big, like starting any small business is a big risk, of course, but you can mitigate that risk by planning ahead, being organised, having good networking and having good people behind you in terms of, say, administration, bookkeeping, accounting, all that marketing, all those sorts of things to sort of help you along the way to get you going. But I was very fortunate that a lot of those things just fell into place. I already had a really good clientele base that was prepared to come with me. And granted, I wasn't moving too far from the big box gym. I was literally maybe a kilometre away, just in a different area. So 90% of the clientele that I had were happy to come over to the new facility, and so that worked out really well as well. So yeah, you've got to be prepared to take the risk, but without risk, there's no reward. So yeah, it generally pays off if you're organised and ready to do it.
Okay, that's very interesting. You mentioned a few people that you had helped you build out the business. Can you tell us who are those key people and how they helped you out?
Yeah, of course. Well, look, my wife's probably my biggest backup, I suppose. She encouraged me to, like, I'm very much, I'm a big skeptic, and I'm not the biggest of risk takers myself. It's just my personality. But she encouraged me to look for a space. She found the space, and then she's told me to just go for it. And obviously that was very encouraging. My own personal trainer and bodybuilding coach, Leon, who actually spoke at the Connect Festival as well. He spoke just after me. He was a big influence as well because he'd already done that same process.
Right.
So I kind of mirrored his process to a degree. He worked in a big box gym, set up a home studio, although he went full time into his home studio, and then he found a space after that. So I kind of mirrored his, and then just did a little bit better if I could, just to improve on his process.
Right.
So they're probably the two biggest influences. And then just knowing people around in terms of marketing and print material. I've connected with a local supplement supplier as well, so that we sort of do a lot of cross promotion and things like that, just to continually spread the word of my branding, my business, and maintain exposure and content in the community, which is very important to stay relevant.
Very interesting. And I feel that your experience in having worked with the company before sort of sets you up. You're more mature than you would have otherwise, and you sort of know how to get around to do things. And specifically now, when it comes to, like, besides fitness, when you set up the business, what were the things that you had to grapple with and you had to understand a little bit better for you to be able to run the business successfully?
You've raised a really, really good point there. Being as, I guess, old as I was or mature as I was, because I found that actually did work really far in my favour. And sorry to take away from the original question, but I find that I can empathise a lot more with people, given my age and my experience. Like, I've got 3 young kids, I've got a family. I've been through a divorce, which I'm more than happy to speak openly about. So those things I can relate to quite well. So when I get clientele that are having difficulties, personal difficulties, they're emotionally eating because of stresses at home, things like that, I can empathise a lot better. So that certainly worked in my favour. Whereas if I was, say, 18, 19, straight out of school, qualified, I don't have that experience. I haven't travelled, I haven't seen the world, I haven't been married, I haven't got children, all those sorts of things. So that was certainly an advantage that I did have, I think. But in terms of moving into the space and the things I had to sort of overcome, well, when I moved my equipment and my flooring from my home studio to my shed or my gym, I didn't have enough. So I've got photos that are quite funny. I've got like it's just a standard industrial shed that it was, just a shell. And I put all the equipment in. It's still quite half empty. There's nothing on the wall. There's concrete everywhere. The flooring only fit maybe a third of the floor. So for the first probably 6 months, that's how it looked, and that's how people trained in. But we made it work. So, over time, obviously, gym equipment's expensive. So we just built up bit by bit and bought a bit more until we filled the space. And I added a lot of material to the walls to try and create a bit more of a homely feel, a bit more of an inviting environment. You don't want to walk into a shed and actually it feels like a shed. It feels like an industrial warehouse. It actually needs to feel like a gym. So I think it does that now. I've got a big sticker on the very back wall. So as soon as you walk in, you turn the corner, you look down, you see this massive sticker, and it's my sort of tagline, which is "No excuses here." So that's massive. It's just this huge thing that's about 5 meters long, and you can't miss it. So it sort of inspires people to push when they're in the four walls. But that were the primary things. It was just a matter of getting the equipment and getting the place looking and feeling like a gym, so that when a new person came along for the first time for a consult or just a catch up, they walk in and they go, "Oh wow, this feels great. This feels amazing. This feels welcoming." You don't want the first impression to be, "Oh, this is a shed." So that was very important to me to create that environment.
Excellent. And from the way you're describing how you built your business, it was bit by bit with the equipment, with moving to your first moving to your garage and then a shed. Did you, and it's also about managing your finances when you're setting something up. Did you hire professionals to help you in any of this? Because when you're setting up something new, you're also a little scared, saying, I've never done this before. Will I be able to do this? So should the first time entrepreneurs who are setting up their fitness, however, online or offline, at what point should they say this is beyond my capabilities and I should hire someone professional?
I did, absolutely. It's funny. I watched my parents run their own business for 20 odd years, and I swore I would never own my own business. I swore, because I saw how hard they work, I saw how long they work. But ironically, here I am. So I tried to take on as much as I could, because obviously I was trying to be as cost efficient as I could be. But the bookkeeping side of things got me. I just don't have the patience to sit down and enter numbers and run your finances and things like that. I managed the cash flow, but from a bookkeeping perspective, with invoices in and out, I had to hire someone. I couldn't do it as efficiently as I should. Yeah. So I got a bookkeeper. I use an accountant for my end of financial year and BAS, which we do every 3 months. I use a sign writer to do stickers, signs. I've got a big flag, posters, like big ones. They've also done some material for me for content online, things like that. I've obviously paid for as well. But that's pretty much it. The rest of it is in-house. I try and do as much as I can just to stay on top of things. There's still the opportunity in personal training during the middle of the day. There's not really a lot of clientele that want middle of the day. The peak times are obviously before work and after work. So early morning, late afternoon. So during the middle of the day is when you generally get most of the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts stuff done. So that's when I do some marketing. I'll do emailing, invoicing, cash flow, all that sort of stuff during those periods. So there is opportunity to do that. You just obviously have to be quite efficient with your time. But yeah, accounting and bookkeeping was one thing I just didn't want to do.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Those things are better left to professionals. Yeah. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that before this COVID pandemic, 50% of your clients were online. So you have that part of the business as well. To build that out and to acquire clients for the online side of things, did you have to rely on social media, or how did you build that out? And how important is social media in these marketing efforts?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, about 50% of my business was online, a few months back before COVID hit. And that was that was sort of the next phase of the business development, I suppose. I moved into the shed, I built that up and obviously established myself there. And then I wanted to sort of take a step back in terms of face-to-face content, because obviously, if you do too much, you burn out, and it's only me. So developing that online component was very important, and that built up over time. But yeah, social media, look, it's free, so you'd be silly not to use it. I didn't want to overwhelm myself with too many platforms, so I primarily just stick to the main ones, being Facebook and Instagram, and I dabble a little bit in LinkedIn. I don't go down the Snapchat path or anything like that. I'm not the most savvy person when it comes to technology, so I don't want to overwhelm myself and do something wrong on the wrong platform. So yeah, but I utilize them to the best of my knowledge. I try and be as strategic as I can with posting. I make sure content is relevant. Before coronavirus hit, I did a lot of video content as well because I found that was more, I guess, appealing to people. It generally got more people interested rather than just pictures and words. So I was trying to be as strategic as I could with what I knew about social media and how it worked. I do the odd sponsored posts, not too many. So look, that seemed to work well enough for me. And given it's just me as a solo operator, I didn't want, thousands and thousands of clients. That would not be efficient, and I would not be able to maintain a good level of service with that. So I was quite happy with where I was at and just continually maintaining the content I was putting out to maintain the level that I was at.
Okay. We have a question from Akshay, and he wants to know, do you have any plans for increasing your studio's presence in Brisbane? Okay, I'll let you answer that.
Sorry. I do have plans to expand. Like I'm on a 3-year lease in the space that I'm at the moment. So I've obviously got another 12 months to go from July. And there is an opportunity to potentially look at a bigger space. But in saying that, I'd be happy to stay where I am. I don't know if I'd want to franchise out or open up a number of different studios under my name. I don't know. I'm pretty content with where I'm at in terms of the business and the workload I've got. So I don't know if creating another entity would be in my best interest. But you never know. You asked me 8 years ago if I was going to be a personal trainer, I would have said no. You're kidding yourself. So who knows?
Yeah, that's the thing about setting goals, right?
That's right.
You don't know where life will take you. So, when you thought of fitness, did you consider any other career options other than personal training? I don't know what else is out there in Australia. How did you lock in on personal training?
Oh, look, I think my own personal trainer had a big influence on that, not directly, but just me watching him work with people. It made me realise how much impact you can have with people, helping them, particularly when you provide the level of education and training and knowledge to better their own position.
Yeah.
But outside of that, look, the only other thing that I would have potentially gone down the path of would have been working with sporting teams. When I was younger, I used to do a lot of rugby union coaching because I'd obviously played at a high level. So naturally, that progression just followed its own path, and I started coaching kids. So I did see myself following that, but I decided to up and travel the world and things like that. So it sort of just fell by the wayside. But I always felt I was always a better coach than a player. And I think in terms of bodybuilding, I always feel that I'm a better coach than a bodybuilder. I just seem to be able to relay the message and empathise with people and get that message across and get them to their goal a lot better. So I'm pretty happy with where I've ended up, to be honest.
That's interesting because it's also very important to know your strengths, and just the fact that 90% of the clients followed you to your studio says a lot about how personal values and how you run with your clients and how do you deal with them has a lot to do with just the sort of following and loyalty that you can build.
Oh, 100%. It's as a trainer, it's incredibly important to provide a community environment, something where people feel safe, they feel comfortable, because it's it's not all about just telling someone to lift 12 reps of whatever exercise it is. You've got to break down the walls. There's a lot more going on generally with an individual than just the fact that they need to exercise. So you've got to provide a level of security that they are willing to open up. Because if you can get through to them on a psychological level or a spiritual level or whatever it might be, you can generally find the problem and fix it. It may not be the fact that they need to train. but training is their outlet. It may be the fact that they need to fix their eating, or they might have some financial stresses at home, or something, whatever the case may be. So having a community sort of environment that I created, and I've got a Facebook group that I set up years and years and years ago, specifically for clients who have all now become quite good friends, to be honest, which is really humbling to see. I think that's very important. You've got to, like, even from my first client to any client that I pick up that I get currently, you've got to treat them like gold. The service shouldn't change. The quality shouldn't change. You should always treat them and give them the highest level of service to your best of your ability, not only within the confines of the half an hour or to an hour session that you're providing them face to face, but outside of that as well. They might need to speak to you on a Friday afternoon, even though you trained them on a Monday, because they have a question about their food for the weekend. So you've got to make yourself available. So that's one of the things that I learned very quickly about personal training is the mental demand it has. You've got to be available a lot more than just the time you're in the gym. So I learned that very quickly, and it's just something that you have to evolve and adapt to.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And for someone who's thinking of a career in this, they need to know and understand that it is not just, the knowledge that you have from how to get fit. It's a lot to do with mental wellness and how do you put the client in the right frame, make them trust you. So this is going a little bit off topic, but I want to stay with this, Paul, because it's very important for those who are thinking of a career in this. Can you give us a sort of an example of how you helped someone through a difficult phase and help them, help them along on their fitness journey? Can you share an example for us if you can?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I've got a lot of examples, and I think that certainly helps with success in this industry is getting those transformations. And they might not be physical; they could be mental transformations as well, or just transforming someone's life. I'll highlight one client, but I've obviously got many. And I think she might even be watching, and that's my client Kelly. If you go back through my Instagram or Facebook feed, you'll see the before and after of her. So she came to me about 2 years ago, actually longer than that, when I was still at the big box gym, and wanted to make a change. Came from years and years and years of crash dieting, poor diets, lots of cardio, just your typical sort of uninformed, uneducated individual that really didn't have a direction or proper guidance. So we started obviously with strength training. That was the first component. So we started working on her ability to lift well, good technique, a lot of volume, and then we started working on her nutrition. Now, she was in it for the long haul. She committed for a long period of time. She knew she was up against a long journey. It wasn't a 12-week process. It wasn't going to be fixed in a matter of weeks. We had to work along. So long story short, she still trains with me today. So a couple of years on, she's well and truly over, I think, 15 kilos lighter, but her mindset and her physique has changed dramatically. So she's gone from someone who was, and I don't want to be disrespectful, I guess she classified herself as overweight and she wasn't confident in her own skin. And now she lifts incredibly well, lifts a lot of weight, eats heaps of food. So when we talk calories, she went from like 800 to now 25 to 3,000.
Wow.
But she's maintained the weight loss off as well.
Excellent.
Which is incredibly important because, as we spoke about off air, nutrition is an incredibly big component of anyone's journey when it comes to weight loss.
Yeah.
So she's had an incredibly successful period, but it's taken 2 years to get there. So, there's no quick fix if you're going to do it naturally, if you're going to do it the right way. But she's set herself up for life. And now she's actually pursuing a career in personal training in the fitness industry as well, which is really great to see. So she's taking what she's learned and she's going to go on and help others, which I think is amazing.
That's amazing. A lot of people here have also personally transformed. If they've, fought the demons and now they're more confident, they want to take part in the industry. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you. Yeah. All the best to Kelly also, if she's watching. We have a question from Ankit, and he wants to know if you can give him advice on, or anyone on how one should plan to be in the fitness industry and what challenges did you face and that someone should be aware of when they're starting off.
I think the biggest shock factor for me was the lack of income. So I went from a steady paying job, a successful role within the construction industry, to not earning any money at all. And I actually didn't earn any money for the first month. So I went a month without any income. So you've got to be prepared for that. Now, granted, a lot of the gyms will provide support in that regard. Like they might give you free rent, they'll provide assistance in terms of marketing and things like that. But you've still got to be. It does come as quite a shock if you're not ready for that. And as I said, I went in quite naive, so I may have done things a little bit differently at the start. But that was one of the biggest things. The other thing is, when you do a consult with a potential client or a new member or something like that, you've pretty much got one opportunity to make an impression. And it's a very limited period of time as well. So you've got to ask the right questions. So you need your script and your, I guess your, what do they call it?
Your pitch or...
Yeah. You've got to be, you've got to have it in, down pat, so that you know what you're going to say. But then you need to adapt it to the individual, because every individual is going to be different with a different background. Some might have injuries, some might be overweight, some might want to get stronger and put on more muscle. So you've got to be able to adapt that introduction. But you've got, as I said previously, you've got to provide the empathy to a situation. You've got to be excited, because that rapport needs to develop very, very quickly. So one of the key attributes to me having a lot of success with initial clientele was I offered a free consult and 2 free sessions, not just one. And the reason I did 2 was, if you can work with them through the first one and develop an initial rapport, and then they agree to come back for the second one, 9 times out of 10, you've already got them. And I don't mean that to sound like an aggressive sales tactic, but because they're coming back straight away, you've doubled your time with them. So you get further opportunity to speak to them, and you can relate back to the first session too, if you can recall exactly what you said. Obviously you're going to ask some personal questions too. What do you do for a living? Where do you live? Family, all those sorts of things. So then you can start really building that relationship. So that was a big winner for me in terms of having success and sort of building that clientele in the first 12 months, was offering 2 free sessions. Yes, you're giving up time, but you're not earning any money, or you've got a lot of time on your hands anyway when you first become a trailer. So rather than just walking around the gym cleaning equipment, I was going through the database and I was shooting messages and making phone calls to people and offering that, and I got a lot of hits and a lot of work out of it. So that worked really well.
Wow. So you really have to put yourself out there. And it's not like once you've done a certification, anyone owes you anything. You have to go out and build your client base. You have to, establish that trust factor with them. That's
100%. Look, you've got to make yourself present, and you've got to be available all the time, so people are familiar with you. If you're constantly in the gym and they're walking by, you say hello and introduce yourself, things like that. They become familiar, they become comfortable. So when it comes time for someone to get a trainer, they'll immediately think of you because they remember how nice you might have been. And I've had clients come up to me or approach me for to book in sessions that they would have spoken to me 12 months earlier. But because I'd done the due diligence and just, been nice and said hello and how you going, and maybe helped them, I might have been walking the floor and they might have needed a spot, or they just wanted to ask me a general question about health and fitness, and I was happy to give it. They remember that. So you've always got to be on. When you're in the gym, in the 4 walls of the gym, you've always got to be on. I was even doing group fitness classes, even though that's not my niche. I was in there because it was giving me exposure. So, if I didn't have any clients to work with, if I didn't have any equipment to clean, if I didn't have any marketing to do, I'd go to a group fitness class, purely for a bit of exercise and something different, but also to provide more exposure for myself.
Okay, excellent. Paul, on this, we have just a few minutes left, and I want to ask this question. A lot of people who feel that they are introverts, that they find it very difficult to connect with people. Like, how do you overcome that and go out and, do what you have to do to connect with people? And how did you do it?
World's biggest introvert. I really dislike going to busy shopping centres. I dislike going in crowds. Which is ironic because obviously I work with people. Looked at the most honest answer, even though it's brutally honest, is you've just got to put yourself out there. You've you've got to get used. What's the saying? You've got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that develops you as a person, but it also develops you as a professional in this industry. So, the other tip I'd give is if someone asks you a question that you actually don't know the answer to, tell them you don't know. Don't try and create an answer or fumble through an answer or anything like that because you're not sure. Just tell them you don't know. People appreciate honesty, believe it or not. And the opportunity is there then for you to say, well, hang on a second, I'll go and research it and I'll come back to you with the answer. So then you've got a second contact point with them as well. But yeah, you've just got to get used to being uncomfortable. You've got to put yourself out there. Like, this is an industry where you work with people. So even if you are an introvert like myself, you have to make the change to get used to it. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's no hiding from the growth path that you need to take, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
Paul, lastly, just how do you see the fitness industry evolving over the next few years? And of course, the pandemic will take its own course. But do you see, like, except for that, do you see any changes coming, or how do you see the industry?
That's a good question. I think the pandemic will have an influence on how we proceed when everything sort of gets back to whatever the new normal may be in regards to Zoom training, because that's obviously taken a big role in people's fitness through this period. But I think just the development and I guess growth of online coaching has become more prevalent. And look, it's been there for a long time already, but it's evolved and adapted, and there's so many ways to provide online coaching now. So you don't necessarily have to go to a gym to train with a trainer. You can train, like I have clients all over the world, and through online coaching, I have the opportunity to do that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I guess component of health and fitness will continually grow and develop, and you never know. Like, personal trainers might not be in existence in 50 years' time. I don't know, but I think in saying that, I think the need for human contact is always going to be needed. So a lot of people, when they've approached me and I've been at capacity, I said, look, I've got online coaching as an option here. You train in the gym. Would you like to look at that? They said, no, I'd rather come to you face to face because I need that accountability. So I think that human contact component will always be needed. But I think those that are, I guess, competent in their own abilities to train and stay motivated to train and eat right and things like that, then online coaching is a great way to go. So that will continue to grow, I'm sure of it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Paul. There's so many gems in our conversation. I'm sure people will go back and replay and listen to your advice all along the way. Thank you for being so candid and sharing all these things with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Not a problem at all.
Thank you. Thank you for now. Talk to you soon.
No worries. Okay, thank you.
Okay.